have Stay from Red Men TV to come to speak to us about the big game this weekend. Let's bring him on. How you doing, mate?
How you doing? I'm good, boys. How are you? You well?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. Obviously, gearing up for the big game this weekend. A lot has been made out of Liverpool so far this season with your injuries and your start to the season. 4 wins, 4 draws, 4 losses. But from the inside, what's been going on with Liverpool this season?
Similarly to Spurs, we're conceding too many goals, too many of the first goals in games, and that kind of gives you a mountain to climb. We've not really started the season with any form, so to speak, and you do wonder if that's the drop-off from going so close to sort of immortality in football terms to suddenly realising that, you know, whilst there's nothing wrong with winning the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup, those are the 2 smaller of the 4 trophies we went for. So there would be a little bit of a natural drop-off, and then we've had some injuries and some players who are a little bit fatigued. So in that regard, not the start we were looking for. Some great results, and then some not so great results, as you guys have alluded to, with the losses to Leeds and to Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, and I was looking at, I was talking about those games against Leeds and Forest, and on the face of it, obviously really poor results. But would you say Liverpool deserved the defeats in those games? Because, you know, Henderson and Meslier were probably the best players on the park in both of those games. So do you think maybe the results maybe overshadow some of the performances, or do you think you're getting what you deserve at the moment?
I can't really sit here and make an argument to say we deserve 6 points from both of those games. We did create chances, and Meslier had a good game, but if you actually look at the saves he made, with the exception of one very late on, they are saves you would expect a goalkeeper of Premier League calibre to make. Whilst we're creating the openings, we're not really being incisive with the final ball into the box and the chances that we're taking. So I couldn't sit here hand on heart and say to you, I thought we were unlucky not to go away with 6 points. I think in both of those games, and we'll get onto this with you guys in the Spurs game coming up, I thought in both of those games our midfield wasn't a factor in terms of controlling the game, and that's where we struggled. So, as I say, I'm not going to sit here and say I thought we were hard done to. I think those teams worked hard for what they got from those games, and fair play to them.
And when coming into this season, obviously Klopp did say in the summer how you needed to beef up the midfield. You have obviously ended up getting Arthur Melo through the door. He's had big injuries and haven't seemed to get him on the pitch. Is that where you seem to be really lacking this season? Is that where you see the flaws to be in the midfield?
Well, we went into the season with 8, including Arthur Melo, who was offered to everybody, and we seemed to take him for some reason. Obviously now he's long-term injured, so it's not a factor. We definitely, as a fan base and as people who work in similar environments to me, wanted Liverpool to go and invest in the summer. And until Mbappe decided not to go to Real Madrid, Tchouaméni was definitely on the radar for Liverpool. And then Real Madrid changed their focus, and the opportunity to go and play in there with Camavinga and be part of the next Real Madrid team for 10 years for Tchouaméni was too big an opportunity for him. So we missed out on that one. And we do have a history of putting our eggs in one basket, and now we're firmly ensconced in this idea that we're going to sign Jude Bellingham sooner rather than later. So it was a bit remiss. I think every Liverpool fan you ever speak to will tell you that to go into a season with Thiago, Henderson, Fabinho, who are all injury prone, was not really sort of a recipe for a successful season in terms of we needed strength in there.
Talk to me about Klopp's 7th season syndrome. Is it a factor coming into this season as well? Is that just like a myth? Well, what's Liverpool fans' take on that kind of suggestion?
That's the first time I've heard it this year, so that tells you where we're at with regards to that. The Dortmund thing was very different to what the Liverpool thing is. We expected to compete this season, and I still believe we're very firmly in the top 4 race. Let's be honest, if Manchester City fall off a cliff, that's really the only way that they don't win the league. Arsenal have not done this before, and they don't have the knowledge and the wherewithal to get them over the line. Doing very well now, but there's things that happen in the season that haven't happened to those guys yet, and they will. So I don't think Klopp went into this season with any trepidation or any hesitancy about what we might accomplish. We've been very good over the years of losing to Real Madrid in a European Cup final, and forgive me, boys, mentioning it. We got there the following year and played you guys, and we
had to bring it up, didn't you? Had to
bring it up. I didn't do it for that reason. And then obviously getting 97 points and finishing second. He's very, very good at using adversity to get more out of players. And I just think we couldn't predict. I don't think we predicted particularly well how the rest of the teams in the Premier League would improve. More or less every team you play in the Premier League now has got powerful, athletic midfielders who will cause you problems, and they're intense. We've not been able to match that. I've long been saying on our own shows internally that in the middle of the park for Liverpool, we've been a bit lacklustre, a bit dead in terms of having legs and athleticism and power. And I think it was evident from the Fulham game, first game of the season, that was going to be something teams would stretch you with. So, no, I don't think the 7-season thing comes into play. And if we do, and we're going to have to put our hands in our pockets in January, and if we make the right signings, I still believe we're very firmly in the race for the top 4. And ultimately now, given the distance between us and Manchester City, you have to realign your expectations, and that will be minimum now. Champions League football for Liverpool.
If you talk to a lot of Spurs fans, there would be questions of Daniel Levy in the hierarchy about how much they do back Antonio Conte and all the previous managers, to be honest. Are there similar questions to maybe the Liverpool hierarchy at the moment, with how much Klopp has had the backing after how successful he's been?
Well, to some degree, yeah. I think we've got 2 board members who sit on both FSG and Liverpool's boards, and they basically make sure we don't become the next Leeds United or do what Manchester United do, which is just amass a whole load of players who you pay hundreds of millions of pounds for without really having a plan, which is what they've been guilty of in recent years. So, yes, they could loosen the purse strings a little bit and maybe help invest in Liverpool Football Club. We don't know really, unless you sit and have a conversation with Klopp, we don't know really whether he put his hand up and said, I'm good to go with this, or he was quite resilient and quite determined to say, I need some support, I need some funding. We obviously bought Luis Diaz because you guys showed an interest in him, and we bought him in January, whereas he was supposed to be part of the summer recruitment. So if you look at Liverpool's last 2 transfer windows, Diaz at 50, Nunez at 64, rising to 80, Carvalho at sort of 10. That's well over £100 million worth of investment. Things definitely need to be put into perspective from a Liverpool fan base point of view when you talk about who's investing and who isn't. But January is big for Liverpool. If they really want to compete this season and make sure that they're got a really good shout at top 4, they have to invest in January, because to miss out could probably set us back 2 or 3 years in terms of short to medium term targets.
And talking about the near future, obviously I mentioned the Klopp 7-season syndrome. Is there any suggestion that his time at at Liverpool might be coming to an end any time soon, do you think?
No, because he's the most philosophical of men. He's not a guy that sort of wallows in the self-pity that social media brings. We see a lot of that. You guys have got overreactive fans as well, about Conte and his style of football. So you'll always get that, but I don't think he pays too much notice to that. He is very, very much sort of a man of the people. So we got given the freedom of the city 2 nights ago, so that tells you what we think about him. He's not looking. His agents come out and said, look, let's just put this to bed before it becomes a thing. Jurgen is not looking at bringing his tenure at Liverpool Football Club to an end. I genuinely believe it is in his own mind to sign players of a slightly lesser degree and turn them into the next Andy Robertson, turn them into the next Jordan Henderson, and nurture and develop players, probably brings him more satisfaction than going and spending 150 million on Kevin De Bruyne, for instance, to use an example. He seems to gain satisfaction from developing footballers, and this is just going to be kind of Jurgen Klopp 2.0 in terms of where we go now with the squad, because it is aging. It needs to be revitalised. It needs to be refreshed. And I firmly believe he signed his new contract on the back of, I'm going to get to do this again with a different set of players.
And from your opinion, from maybe an outsider looking into Tottenham Hotspur with Antonio Conte, how do you assess Tottenham, and how far do you think we can go under Antonio?
So it's definite progression. I mean, in short, in the recent time, you're very similar management style to Jose Mourinho in the sense that it's defensive responsibilities first, and then that's your cornerstone, and you build off that. I think you can't argue with top 3 in the Premier League and coming through the Champions League knockout and gaining knockout stage progression by winning your group. You can't argue with that. That is a positive. I think the thing that I see is that lots of Tottenham fans, having been spoilt with the players like Villa, Diaz, Hoddle, Gascoigne, have always had cultured footballers in the centre of midfield, and they still want that. But I guess the ultimate question to Spurs would be, do you want that as a trade-off to success? Because football's a results-based game now. It's not necessarily an entertainment-based game.
Absolutely.
So sometimes you have to sacrifice your footballing principles, because there's nothing better than seeing your team with a trophy at the end of the season. And I guess that's the big question for Spurs. Do you accept that Conte is a winner before he's an entertainer? Can you live with that? I had a conversation with somebody else yesterday that said it's actually quite a small sample size of Spurs fans that are really against Conte. But as I said before, your football heritage is about classy, silky footballers in the middle of the park, and today's football doesn't necessarily warrant that if you want to be successful.
Yeah, I agree with that. When it comes to one of your strikers, obviously you do have injuries, but Darwin Nunez has it's hard to describe his start to life at Liverpool. Some call it mixed, some saying he's a flop, some saying he's really good. What's your take on your new striker?
Yeah, it's certainly interesting to watch. You can't take your eyes off him. He's capable of the sublime to the ridiculous. And when I talk about ridiculous, I mean doing things that you would expect him to be able to do, and he doesn't do them. And then the sublime being the bits of skill and some of the finishes that he's delivered. He's ridiculously quick. His movement is sensational. He will very, very quickly on Sunday decide which of the Spurs back four he's going to try and isolate. He's very clever at doing that. And his pace and his raw power is sensational. There's a player in there. There's a lot of work to do to get him to learn how Liverpool play, and for Liverpool to learn how he plays. It's very much a two-way street. There's still some work to do there, but his stats are pretty good. 15 games, not always starts. I think he's got 7 goals and a couple of assists. It's not quite the flop that people are suggesting he is. And if you compare his numbers to minutes on the pitch, he's actually got a better return rate than the much heralded Jesus over at Arsenal. His numbers are comparable to his. Yeah, one's a flop and one's a world beater. So, I guess it depends which football eyes are looking at the player. But we think we like him. We think he's going to do good things for the club. The language barrier is a problem at the moment. He's still learning English every day. He's being instructed by the likes of Thiago in a tongue that he can understand. But he's got all the raw attributes to be a raging success, but there's still a bit of work to do with him.
With the injuries that you've got coming into this game, obviously Luis Diaz, Arthur Melo, Diego Jota, and potentially Matip, Keita and Henderson as well. What sort of lineup are you expecting to see for Liverpool this weekend?
Well, Klopp's just done his press conference, and an update on the injury. James Milner isn't available through concussion protocol from the game midweek.
Right.
But Jordan Henderson is fully fit and able to play. So
right.
I think you'll see fundamentally in our midfield, it'll be like a double pivot with a player playing slightly more advanced on one side, almost an 8. And I expect that to be Fabinho, Thiago and Elliott to start the game. And then Henderson will come on and help manage the game towards the end. The difficulty for Liverpool is what we do up front. Do we go with Salah on the right, but Bobby Firmino through the middle, and we play Nunez off the left? That, to a lot of people, looks like a diamond because Bobby comes very deep to pick up the ball, and it's being misconstrued or being correctly construed as a midfield diamond, which I don't understand. I don't think I'd play Thiago on the left side of a midfield diamond. I just don't see how that works for a player of that ability. And in terms of the back four, I think you'll find that it'll be... Van Dijk, Konate, also Trent and Robertson as a back forward, Alisson in goal. I don't think that changes. That picks itself, to be honest with you. So, that's done and dusted. The back four's done and dusted. It's how confident we are of playing up against your injuries, because I listening to you guys speak beforehand, and Son's a massive loss because every team gets at Liverpool down our right hand side of our defence. He would have enjoyed the space to play in. You may well go with a 3-5-2 to combat that because you just don't have the bodies. So I don't know what you guys do. I guess I could ask you, what do you think you guys will do team wise?
Yeah, I think we're going to go for a 3-4-3 to be honest. I mean, 3-5-2 actually worked for us last year, didn't it?
Yeah, but we don't have the strikers for a 3-4-3.
Well, we got more. I guess we don't, do we? We have to play 3-5-2. To be fair, we have to play 3-5-2.
Unless you want to put Perisic up there or Hill, but I don't see.
Probably
I can't
3-5-2 with Kane and Moore up front.
Yeah, that's what I see, and it's difficult, especially how Liverpool play. You know, they're going to put a lot of pressure on us. They're going to try and pen us in, and it's all well and good when you have players like Kane and Son as your outlets, but when you have one of them missing, it's a lot of reliance on someone like Kane exploiting the space, and he isn't much of a runner. So I don't know. I'm kind of worried about this game, but Trent suggested before the game that this game for Liverpool is a bit of a make or break in terms of you really need to get a result in this game if you're going to keep pace with the top four. Do you believe if you lose on Sunday that the top, like you'll be 13 points behind Tottenham if you lose on Sunday? I mean, obviously it's still quite early on in the season, but how much of a blow would that be to your top four hopes if you do suffer another defeat?
He's got a point. We can't afford to lose much more ground to the top four. With every game that we lose, potentially we slip that much further away from it. There are a number of games to recover the points. I think the World Cup is going to be a leveler for everybody. I think what we need to do, get to a point where we're still in the race for top four, come back from the World Cup, reevaluate who's available, who's not, and it'll be the same for everybody. I think Manchester City have got 14 players going to the World Cup, so Arsenal will be banking on a few of those coming back unfit. I think that's the same for everybody. So I think the second half of the season, and we've never seen a season like this before because of the World Cup, will be really pivotal. We can't afford to lose, that's for sure. To be 13 points behind Spurs is that means we need some form of a result to go against Spurs and work for us over 5 fixtures. That's quite difficult to do. That's a big ask. It's not impossible, but it's a big ask. It's coming out of the realms of it being in our hands, and we're handing it over to other people to sort of give us opportunities to recover the ground, which is never a good thing so early in the season. So I think it's got a point. Given your injuries and Romero not being fit, which is a big one, I think Liverpool go there to play on the front foot.
And having said that, how do you see the game going, and what's your score prediction?
I think both will be pragmatic to start with. It's been the story of the season for both of us, and that's the reason why I think we concede goals early on, both of us. I think there'll be goals. I'd like to think we'd edge it by the odd goal in 3. So I went for a 2-1 win to Liverpool yesterday, and I'm not going to change that. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I actually went for 1-0 to Spurs. I think that both teams will. I think it'll be a bit of a game of chess on Sunday, and both teams are going to feel each other out in the first half. And hopefully, I'm banking on Spurs to be a bit resilient in defence with the 3 midfielders in midfield as well to really protect them. So I'm hoping for a clean sheet. I mean, it's more hope than actual anything else. But yeah, I've gone for a 1-0 Spurs win with Harry Kane to nick one from a set piece or something. I don't think there's going to be many goals in this one, to be fair.
Yeah, I went 1-1. I think it's going to be a close game. And I think both teams at the moment, the way we're playing, sitting quite deep, soaking up pressure, the way Liverpool are conceding chance on the counter, it does lead to a kind of battle of tactics. But I just believe with our forward players out, I think we're going to struggle to create, or when we do create, we're going to struggle to finish. And that's what I'm worried about. However, I do think from set pieces, we're very strong this season. So I do think if we can get a few of them, then maybe we can get a goal from a set piece. But I see it being very difficult for Spurs to win this game, even given Liverpool's form.
But thank you so much for coming on today, my friend, to preview the game. Everyone go hop over to Redmen TV, bash that subscriber button. And yeah, just thank you so much for coming on.
No worries. Thanks for having me, boys. And I'd like to wish you luck for the weekend, but I can't really do that, can I? So best of luck for the rest of your season. I'll do that. Best of luck for the rest of your season.
And to you, mate. And to you.
Appreciate it, Say.
See you soon.